Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. Dada, with episode 796 of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and it technically, while I'm recording this, is Thursday. So you know exactly what that means. We are here to break down the latest and greatest across NXT and AEW, but this is a special supersized edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. Not only are we talking about NXT and AEW television this week, we have an NXT No Mercy 2025 Ultimate Preview and your long-delayed analysis from AEW All Out 2025. We have, as you just heard, an absolutely loaded show for you ahead, so we're not wasting any time off the top. Allow the Silver King to remind you that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about the five.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple, take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast. You can find us on Twitter and Blue Sky with episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, all of that good stuff. You can also send in questions and comments for the show, and I am traveling, which is why my microphone sounds different, the audio sounds different, but I promise we will do our absolute best to read your questions and comments on the show in due time. Don't forget also to hit us up on YouTube, same username as mentioned, at Getting Overcast, full-length audio episodes, full-length video interviews. You can get all of it on YouTube. Now, as I said, we have a ton to talk about. We have NXT and AEW. We have an ultimate preview, a not-so-instant analysis.
But I'm afraid I've got some news.
2 items here off the top, both of which, frankly, are absolutely mind-numbing that I cannot believe need to even be addressed considering their levels of ridiculousness. First, Jasmine Nix has decided to conclude her time with WWE. She turned down an offer to remain with the company in NXT, she said, for 3 years. We'll get into how well she was written off the show later, but she posted a video on social media early Wednesday explaining the situation. She thanked WWE. She simply explained she didn't want to continue for a variety of reasons, including not feeling like their offer was substantial enough to her. It then basically came out that she was making $75,000 annually, and she was offered a renewal at the same number. Watching the IWC go back and forth on this was insane. First, the universal take was that, Nix is good and she's cool in the ring, but she hasn't improved that much, so she's only so valuable. And while she was doing well as a character, it wasn't really that big of a deal for her to decide to leave WWE not to do enough to keep her because developmental is stacked. And then, when it came out she made $75,000, it was then that WWE is a terrible company that's cheap as shit, and of course she would turn that down. Let's understand a few things here. The most important being, if a company actively wants you to remain under their employ, and they see value in you long term, they are not going to offer you an equal, let's call it entry-level deal. By offering someone making $75,000 another contract worth $75,000, they basically said, we like what you do on TV. We're willing to keep investing in your development, but if not, you're replaceable. And while I like Jasmine a decent amount, she is incredibly replaceable. The other key part of this that needs to be understood is that she was being paid $75,000 annually to learn a trade. She had 70 total matches lasting, anywhere between 3 and 12, 14 minutes each, those long ones being tag team matches. So she made like $3,000 to $5,000 per match. The vast majority of those weren't even on television. WWE also paid for medical training, rehabilitation. She had knee surgeries, concussions, a broken nose, trying to portray Nix as a TV wrestler who didn't get paid well, as if she was the North American champion or something like that. It's factually inaccurate. She was a PC trainee who got on TV early. She kept getting injured. WWE believed her to be replaceable. As we've said before, we all have wrestlers we love, we like, we dislike, but no matter the industry, you are not guaranteed permanent employment with a company, nor are you guaranteed consistent raises. That's just not how life works. She worked within Fatal Influence as a group. Outside of it, would you have bought a ticket to go see her perform? WWE made the bet that the answer was no, at least not anytime soon. There's people out there, some of you listening probably, who work 60 hours a week and you wish you made $75,000. And she, by the way, made $75,000 in a no state income tax state. Some of you may probably work that much and make less than that. Again, if WWE truly valued her, they'd had to offer her a raise, or when she came back and said, hey, you know what, that's not cool, I need more than that, they would have said, okay, fine, we'll give you more money. But they didn't. They're not lowballing talent they believe can make them money. We've seen it. We've seen how much they're paying these talents to retain them. They were okay moving on. She was okay leaving. She said she has no ill feelings toward WWE. So why do you? It's as simple as that. It's one person's employment. Wish Jasmine Nix the best. Okay, next item. Okay. Gail Kim, formerly of TNA, came out this week with a take on Rio, the AEW wrestler. Here is her quote, verbatim. Quote, I'm not taking anything away from her talent. I'm talking about what I saw years ago and what made me feel very uncomfortable. She looked like a very young girl in a frilly skirt, and the cameraman was up her ass. It just felt inappropriate to me. She also said, quote, I am also into very believable wrestling. It was very hard for me to believe a little girl that was being portrayed of that size was fighting the women they had in that division, unquote. Now, you can feel however you want about the take. Agree with it, disagree with it. I don't care. I personally never thought AEW purposefully tried to sexualize her. But she's definitely tiny. She does dress like a young girl in a frilly skirt, and I can completely understand someone holding this opinion, especially someone like Gail Kim, who's been completely about uplifting women's wrestling for the last 25 years. The believability aspect. Some will point to, how can Rey Mysterio fight The Undertaker or Big Show or whatever? Rio's under 100 pounds. She's less believable than anyone against women wrestlers that have any size. But okay, let's say you completely disagree with Gail Kim. That's fine. It's definitely a take from her. She put it out there. You're allowed to agree and disagree. I put out takes all the time. I try not to be controversial like that. Many of you agree. Some of you disagree. What happened after this is where I had a major problem. Kenny Omega, who is extremely close to Rio, but he's also an executive vice president in AEW, mind you. He tweeted, quote, another day, another quote-unquote legend doing the splits on it for the yearly TKO gift basket, yawn emoji. So Kenny Omega, champion of Joshi Wrestling, is comparing Gail Kim to a prostitute, suggesting she's doing it to get in WWE's good graces. Mind you, Gail Kim hated WWE for the better part of 2 decades and was one of the company's most outspoken and consistent critics. She has shown up backstage at a couple of NXT things recently when she was with TNA because of the relationship, but she's been out of a job. The first thing I said on the podcast, WWE should bring her in. WWE has not brought her in. Omega's suggestion that Gail Kim is out here prostituting herself and that her take is somehow WWE related simply because he didn't like it, that is the absolute height of absurdity, to the point where there should be pressure on him to apologize to her. But since it's Kenny Omega and it's AEW and it's not WWE, any talent from WWE would get crucified for a comeback like that, by the way. But Omega, AEW, they're above criticism. He not only gets a pass, he gets celebrated for it. It's an insane double standard, incredibly misogynistic, and not at all progressive like he claims to be. Meanwhile, Gail Kim was talking about how weird she felt seeing Rio get sexualized, and someone who has hated WWE for decades is now being called a shill for the company because of that take. That makes sense to you? The woman eliminated herself from a battle royal off script that she hated WWE so much. But yeah, Kenny, she's doing splits on it for a TKO gift basket. You gotta be better than that. And as fans, many of you should be expecting more from people like Omega, who claim to be one thing and then go online and say something like this. All right, that wraps up the news segment of this show. Again, 2 topics I really did not think we were going to have to cover. We have a ton to discuss. But before we get to that, I do need to remind you that here at the Getting Over Wrestling Podcast,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Over head. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover, sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. We're a free show. We're an ad-free show. We want you to sign up just to support us. We try to give you extra content as well, and we would greatly appreciate more of you being new subscribers over at buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Now that said, we have a ton to discuss. We're going to kick it off with NXT. We're going to do AEW on the back end. There are timestamps in the episode description, so you can skip around if you so choose. As always, I hope you listen to the entire show, but it is a 4-segment show beyond the news that we just covered. In order: NXT, NXT No Mercy Ultimate Preview, AEW All Out Analysis, and then everything from AEW Dynamite this week. But as I said, we are starting with NXT. Now, Ava was not at NXT, so she put Stevie Turner and Robert Stone in charge. As they were telling her that TNA wrestlers were somehow in the backstage area, her phone connection cut out, so she was unable to respond or inform them whether she knew about it or not. This comes on the back of last week on NXT, Ava basically being like, hey, why are there TNA wrestlers all tweeting about this? This is concerning. And William Regal being like, yeah, this is a problem that you should probably look into. And then she goes on vacation the next week in kayfabe? I mean, that's just completely illogical. That's an abdication of duties. We've already talked about Ava being like an all-time pushover GM. This is all-time bad GM work from Ava in kayfabe. In reality, they really should have thought this through better. It's shocking to me. Okay, let's get to the rest of the show. Miles Bourne fought Lexus King in a lights out match. This opened the show with lights literally out, only a spotlight on the guys. The arena was filled with smoke from King's entrance. Bourne attacked during that. A glow was put over the fans just so people tuning in knew that there were others in attendance. King put Bourne's head atop a chair and clotheslined him from behind over the back of the chair before taking a trash can and straight brutalizing him with it in the corner. Bourne took Coronation on a table ringside, only for King to eat a slingshot into the ring post. Lexus then wrapped a chair around Miles' neck, attempted to stomp him on the lower steel step, but Bourne escaped, turned around, speared King through the barricade. King then ate a DDT on the steel steps in the ring before Bourne again, basically a zigzag, landed leaping off that step through a table for the 1-2-3. And yeah, Bourne took most of the impact on that zigzag, but nevertheless, it looked pretty cool. This was unexpectedly great, I'll just tell you. High intensity, tremendous work by both guys, played into the extended storyline, put Bourne over, as was ultimately necessary. Extremely tough to ask for more, just considering this was a lower mid-card storyline without that much going for it. To their credit, they had extremely strong character work, storytelling, and at the end, wrestling too. The first match or matches between them really weren't anything special. This was a solid, B+ all around. Jordan Grace was in the women's locker room watching Blake Monroe's vignette from last week when Ariana Grace popped off about Blake being scary, which of course Jordan took offense to because she's not scared of anyone. Ariana tried to clarify that she meant she personally was scared of Blake. Jordan recalled their interaction backstage and how she made it so crystal clear that they were not related as Graces. That obviously led to a match. This was actually Ariana at among her best in NXT. I'm glad we're getting her back on television regularly, excited to see what she can actually do. And Jordan seemed pretty natural for what that's worth. Just, she's been robotic in so many segments recently, but this one I felt, she came across real. So we had Jordan against Ariana. The younger Grace attacked at the bell, and that was basically all the offense she got. Actually, pretty smart strategy in kayfabe. Jordan hit World's Strongest Slam, but missed the Vader Bomb. Then Jordan drove her like gory style into the corner, came back with a great spinebuster and a rack bomb to win in rather squash fashion. Jordan really is excellent bell to bell. She's working on her character. Hopefully that comes all the way around and she makes progress because she has been so far, and we just want to see a little bit more of it. Stax ran out after the bell to console Ariana as she was selling ringside, so clearly they're going all in with that relationship. Blake Monroe came out, dumping a trash can of weapons out before kind of sliding into the ring with a pink kendo stick. She did a full-on duel with Jordan, who was wielding a chair. They went back and forth on one another. Jordan ultimately landed a huge chair shot to her back, but Blake responded immediately, beat the hell out of her with that kendo stick. They had an all-out pull-apart brawl after that, and while that was going on, the authority figures for like the night. So Robert Stone and Stevie Turner, they came out and announced the steel cage weapons match would be officially booked for No Mercy. Again, counter-programming the Silver King's life. I cannot believe I'm going to miss that match. Obafemi and Ricky Saints, all the other stuff on the No Mercy card in my neck of the woods because I just so happened to be away for like one of 3 weekends all year. Such a joke. But the brawl was great. It was really hot between them. The stipulation announcement, super interesting. That would normally be a feud ender, so you need to wonder whether the actual final stipulation will be like loser leaves town or something, because you have to go up in intensity from a stipulation like this. And I don't know really how you go higher than weaponized steel cage unless you do something like that or an I Quit match, something to that degree. All in all, really exciting booking. I'm thrilled that the fans get to see it live this weekend. I'm excited to watch it myself, like on demand somewhat after I get back home from the Ryder Cup on Saturday night. There's going to be a lot to discuss about this match, and it'll probably have the inside track on stealing the entire show. Lyra Valkyria showed up in NXT backstage telling Tatum Paxley she really needs to talk to someone because every time she lets a friend into her inner circle, they completely lose their minds. Tatum was completely understanding of this, of course, but Lyra was specifically speaking about Bayley here, not understanding how it could possibly be her fault. Nothing is ever her fault, Paxley said. And Lyra, of course, loved that she can count on her to be consistent, even though she is nevertheless a weirdo. Lyra said she needed that back in her life, so obviously Tatum completely perked up about that. But Lyra said how proud she was of her, that she made new friends and competed for the tag team titles, etc. Then Izzy Dame comes in saying Lyra left her once before, would obviously do it again if given the opportunity, and she pulled Tatum away by her arm. So first of all, a Tyra segment that completely makes sense on TV. You had me at hello. Obviously love this. It's massively ironic. I taped our WWE episode Tuesday around 7 p.m. Eastern. And I finished it. I set it up for publish, and you guys all saw it, of course, when it came out Wednesday morning. A couple hours later, when I'm watching NXT taped, something I literally said on the podcast that Lyra should almost bring Tatum to the main roster because of her experience with weirdos and dealing with Bayley, it happened in almost the exact same fashion on the same night's NXT. So I guess in some ways, I can say I believe I had that, but this really popped me seeing them back together. Jada Parker got a promo package where she was angry but accepting of Lash Legend handing her a loss a couple weeks ago, but she clarified that she completely murked Legend after that, saying she sees right through her, and at the end of the day, she hits harder, talks louder, and looks better than her. Next time they fight, they're going to get a reality check. I guess they, in this case, is Lash. Perfect promo from Jada, as always. She has personality plus, completely understands her gimmick, and as we've said for a very long time, she should be way further up this card than she currently is. But it was nice to see her on here cutting a promo to this level, and now we just need to get her on more regularly. And again, she should probably be North American champion. I don't know how many more times I need to say that. Chase U backstage commiserated about their embarrassing loss. Andre Chase brought in a couple NASCAR guys. They asked whether the whole gimmick of saying his name and him appearing is real, to which Chase confirmed it was. So then Dark State came in basically threatening them, saying you better not say that name. They knew that what was good for them and shit. So Dixon said it, and Hendry appeared from underneath a NASCAR helmet. That led to a couple sharp lines from Dark State and a 6-man tag team challenge from Cutler James, who actually said it rather convincingly, to give him some credit. But I don't understand why they went away from the comedy bit with Cutler when it was working so well for 2 to 3 weeks. Still, Dark State being more integrated in backstage segments, actually threatening people, looking menacing, that is working for them. We had Joe Hendry and Chase U against Dark State. They ran the Hendry gag a second time, saying his name before the match so he would appear. Dixon had a nice handspring tope. Hendry got the hot tag, went for his typical run. The Chase U kids had a couple hot runs of their own. Actually, they were pretty damn impressive. But when James distracted the referee, Dark State was able to get up on Uriah Connors, hitting a bevy of moves, including the toss powerbomb to stand tall. The match completely over-delivered, to a significant degree, and it was a great showing from the boys bell to bell. This was probably top to bottom Cutler's best work since debuting at NXT. Didn't feel like a forced part of the group at all. This was a match I rolled my eyes at when it was first announced. I'm like, are we really getting this on TV? Why are we doing this? And then by the time it was over, I was like, you know what? Everyone came through, and even Chase U looked good. So credit to them for this. I still don't like the reformation as a group, but this individually worked. There was a speed match, Candice LeRae against Lainey Reed. that NASCAR driver Cole Cutler was a guest ring announcer. He's either a notable guy on that circuit, the Xfinity circuit, or he just loves WWE. This week, for some reason, Lainey Reed looked like a witch. I cannot tell you why. Candice was great here. She did a cool front slam on the ring apron and then like a springboard moonsault outside. There were multiple counters of pinning combinations, only for Lainey to catch Candice cold with a knee for the 1-2-3. And I immediately wanted to defenestrate myself. The fact that Candice LeRae went down to NXT, and I know she's a veteran helping out young talent, but the fact that she came down there, someone who was underutilized on the main roster, and lost to a neophyte who's not even that good in a speed tournament, so it was under 3 minutes, it just disgusted me. Booking someone like Candice against Sol Ruca, that would have actually been valuable for a premium live event match. No one is tuning into No Mercy to see Sol Ruca and Lainey Reed for a tertiary title. Sol and Candice, if LeRae was going to take an L, that would actually help Sol. She beat a main roster superstar. Why are you giving Lainey Reed that rub? What is she going to do with that win? The level to which I hated this cannot be overstated. Okay, so that was a lot of what happened on NXT Tuesday night, and some of it definitely related to No Mercy. But now let's move into the NXT No Mercy Ultimate Preview, where we'll cover everything else that happened on the show that perhaps a little bit more directly led to No Mercy. We'll also go match by match. We'll give you predictions, of course, and at the end, we'll give you a pre-show expectation grade. All of you will have an opportunity to vote for your own pre-show expectation grade and your post-show grade as well on Twitter at Getting Overcast. We will post the first poll about an hour before the show, the second poll immediately after the show. And because the Ryder Cup doesn't really start until noon Eastern on Sunday, there is a chance that Silver King can actually do a real instant analysis immediately after NXT No Mercy. If it's not legitimately instant, it may just be later that night, one way or another. I do believe we'll have that for you Saturday night or Sunday morning, so make sure you hit the podcast feed and you find that. But let's go right down the card. The Speed Championship, Sol Ruca against Lainey Reed. I've stated plenty of times now, this Speed title shouldn't even be in NXT. It shouldn't be recognized on the main roster or NXT. And especially, they should not be putting a Speed title match on a premium live event. She's literally Sol, the North American champion. Why is she not defending the North American Championship here and the Speed title on television? What that tells me most likely is they're going to have her drop the strap and Lainey's going to win. And then what? So she beats her inside of 5 minutes. Does she then get a North American title match? Why are you going to have Sol put over Lainey? I really cannot make sense of this. I mean, again, the logical booking would be that Lainey beats Candice LeRae and then beats Sol, and that's why you do it. But why is she being elevated into the spot? It really does not make a shred of sense. So despite what the booking is telling me, I got to go with Sol Ruca retaining the title here, because I can't imagine a world in which they're strapping up Lainey Reed with any title, let alone the Speed title, beating Sol Ruca for it. If someone else was holding it, I might be able to understand it. I wouldn't get it here. North American Championship, Ethan Page defending against Tavian Heights. Page brushed shoulders with Bourne backstage. He eyed the North American title. Later, Page was in the ring cutting a promo with Dr. Wagner Cesaro sitting in the crowd. For some reason, both Page and Vic Joseph called him Dr. Wagner Jr. The on-screen graphic said El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr. He literally changed his ring name to make this easier. So I don't understand why you aren't calling him by his new name. Either way, he's literally not Dr. Wagner Jr., who is his father. That's not how this works. That would be like calling Cody Rhodes Dusty Rhodes. Anyway, Page instigated a fight, which went down. The referee ran down, but the bell didn't ring. Wagner quickly got in the ring, hit an ankle lock submission. The referee called the tap out. The bell rang, and Wagner's music played. Then he went to hand the title back to Page, the referee, but Wagner took the title and then unmasked, and it was actually Heights who held the strap high to kind of end the segment. This was super chaotic. It was rather confusing. It seemed like they took like a 5-minute segment and shoved it into 90 seconds. It couldn't have been a match because the bell didn't ring to start it. So calling it like one was not only odd, but completely unnecessary. I didn't mind the general premise, but it just should not have been treated that way. Plus, frankly, I was disappointed that it wasn't Wagner at the end of the day. In terms of a prediction here, Paige does need to drop this title, and frankly, he should probably be on the main roster, but I don't know if you're giving it to Heights when you just had Miles Bourne get past an extended feud that he was running, and then you have him give Paige the side eye backstage. To me, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. So I have Paige retaining here. I think he ultimately drops it to Miles Bourne. If Heights does win, that would be great for him, but I don't know, man. He already won the flag match to get the number one contendership. Like, are you really going to put him over him in this spot? I like Heights a lot. I think he has legitimate, extremely high ceiling for sure. But strapping him up with a title over a guy like Paige, who's actually crushing it with the strap right now, when you have Bourne, who is definitely more ready comparatively, that to me just does not make a lot of sense. So I have Paige retaining the title here as well. I have a feeling one of these two titles is going to change. And I'm going to get one of these two predictions wrong, but just off the top, that's not the way I can go with it. Javon Evans against Josh Briggs. Briggs got a promo package basically saying he's better than most, especially given his athleticism as a big man. He said he hears the criticisms that he's not relatable to the WWE universe, but he literally tried to do that with two different babyface tag team partners. And at the end of the day, he realized fans will never care about him, so why should he care about the fans? He said he doesn't care what seat fillers have to say about him, nor what podcasters think. Let me be clear on this show. We've talked about Briggs as a future NXT champion from when the dude was still on Evolve. But as of late, of course, we've been a bit concerned. And he also said that, he used all this to talk shit about Javon Evans, who he said is all about seeking the approval of the fans. And he used all this to talk shit about Javon Evans, who he said is all about seeking the approval of the fans and therefore not only lesser than him, but not prepared to go against him. This was probably, and I know I've said this a few times on the show already, but the best promo of Briggs' NXT career to this point. Showed some gumption, some fight, some toughness. You actually wanted to root for him. Evans later cut a backstage promo. He was in the midst of trash-talking Briggs when some weird noise went off backstage, and we'll circle back to that weird noise in a bit. There's no scenario in which Briggs can beat Evans here. I mean, unless your goal is to sink Javon to the absolute bottom. That way, starting in like January, he needs to build himself back up, and you are actually going to run Javon against Oba at Stand and Deliver. If you're doing that and you're going to delay it that far out, then yeah, theoretically he could lose this. But, Javon's done a decent amount of losing of late, and certainly in the title picture. You kind of want him to, get some wins under his belt, and it would make sense for this to be one of them. So I have Javon Evans getting the win here. Jordan Grace against Blake Monroe, weaponized steel cage match. Now, we already broke down the build to this earlier. This is, of course, the second match in their series. The first saw Blake cheat to win, I believe. She ultimately hit the DDT. So for me, I have to have the expectation this is a 3-match series. And the problem with that is if you're going to do a 3-match series, generally you split the first two and you do a rubber match. Well, the problem is because Jordan got big time licks in on Blake and made her start bleeding, that transitioned Monroe into the woman from hell that she's been kind of showing us. So if you're making that gimmick transition, then you really need to win your first match after making that transition, unless they are going to have her snap to like another completely crazy degree, which is certainly possible. So she becomes the woman from hell, which she already has. Jordan wins anyway. And then she just, eviscerates her after the fact. That leads to a third match. Loser leaves town, something like that. So because I don't know what the booking is going forward, it's really, really tough to kind of come up with a prediction here, right? This could be Jordan Grace's last match. Maybe she's getting called up to the main roster. If not, then you would think that she wins this and it goes to a third, and, that's the way they play it out, probably at Deadline. Or maybe they even do a Deadline match and then save their rubber match for the beginning part of 2026. So it's extremely, extremely tough to say. This is, for me, the toughest match to predict on the entire card. But I am going to go ahead and have Jordan Grace win, and I do believe they will go to a third rubber match in this series. Women's Championship, JC Jane against Lola Vice. JC gave props to Lainey Reed, that is, backstage, before telling Fatal Influence to stay behind because she simply did not need their help in a promo segment that was upcoming with Lola Vice. Jane said, "You might as well forget about what happened last week because none of that matters considering I'm still the champion. I've beaten all the bullshit labels people have put on me. Transitional champion, most beatable champion, all that." She said it's literally laughable to believe someone like Lola, a crossover athlete who's pretending to be a wrestler, could actually beat her. She said that she's the real underdog in the story and the one who was pushed aside and told she would never make it, basically referring back to toxic attraction. Lola came out saying people love talking about her ass, so it's no surprise JC did. She's probably just jealous that she has one. Vice, her contention was that Jane has always needed help, and she had a great line about her being a toxic third wheel, saying Lola's always done it on her own. Vice said she's a completely different person than when she was doing WWE a year ago. She's no longer just a fighter. She's actually a professional wrestler and a WWE superstar. Lola literally promised to show No Mercy at No Mercy, saying she would knock her out and become NXT champion. JC admitted that there is a good chance Lola kicks her ass Saturday, but she also guaranteed herself that somehow, some way, she would walk out as champion. She said Vice would walk out as the biggest disappointment in her family, which led to a Lola backfist knocking JC out cold in the middle of the ring. Not only was this the best Jane has looked, it's one of the best promos she's ever cut in NXT. She has fully found herself as a character, and she is, as far as I'm concerned, ready to go to the main roster. Put her in the mid-card on SmackDown. Let her frickin' flourish. She's already a better promo than at least half the women on the main roster right now. Even her retort back to Vice was fantastic. She just straight up killed this from start to finish. Now, to be fair, Lola probably cut her best promo in her entire WWE career. She was completely on point, spoke clearly, had a through line. She wanted to tell a story. It landed. I wasn't hype about this match at all going into it, but the way they built it on the go home, yeah, they sold the match. And at the end of the day, that's what you want them to do. Now, the weird noise we heard during the Javon promo was revealed to be Jasmine Nix getting laid out backstage. Influence walked up on her with Fallon Henley appearing to have no idea who did it. Jane said it didn't matter because it was time for them to drop her ass, as only the strong survive. And Henley was like, okay, shrugged and left. What a cold-hearted bitch. And I say that in the most positive way. I'd probably have preferred a split, like due to a turn with the group, but seeing Jane dismiss her like that was pretty solid. And of course, as we, later would learn, Jasmine's not returning to WWE at all. Now, my presumption at the moment is that either Laney or the TNA women attacked her. The latter making more sense than the former, but both were definitely plausible options. And again, when I kind of look at this whole deal, I say, well, what happened with TNA was kind of separate. And while they could take her out, wouldn't you want someone to take her out and get a boost from it? The person who would get a boost from it, despite me not wanting it, is Laney Reed. So I believe what's ultimately going to happen here is that, Lola looks like she's going to win the match. Fallon's out there. Maybe she gets, ejected, sent to the back, something like that. Laney Reed winds up coming out and saving the title for JC Jane. Now, with this being in South Florida, again, it's not in Miami, certainly not anywhere near Caliocha, where Lola Vice is from. There is a chance for a title change, and I would expect there to be a significant contingent of people there who are specifically rooting for her. So I'm not putting them past changing the title here, and I know that we're deep into this show, and I haven't necessarily predicted any title to change hands. There's definitely going to be one, if not two, on the program. I don't really, in each situation, I can make legitimate cases for them not doing it. Now, maybe I'm setting you up for some surprises, right? Because I'm coming into this saying, hey, I don't think this is going to happen. I don't think this is going to happen. I would say that this title, out of the two main titles on the show, easily has the greatest chance of changing hands. Not even a question about it. Between the women's and the men's championship, totally. Ranking them all, I would say it has the second best chance overall next to the speed title. But I'm going to say JC with Laney helping her. If not, and if Lola does win this title, then you got to take Jane and Henley and just send them immediately to the main roster, put them on SmackDown, let them be a tag team, maybe win the titles, but if not win the titles, then at least operate both as a team and as individuals in the SmackDown mid-card, because Julia needs opponents. Both of them are completely legitimate, and that division would be so much better with them around. And that takes us to the main event of No Mercy, the NXT Championship. We expected it coming in to be Obafemi against Ricky Saints, but there was a title versus title match on SmackDown between Obafemi and Trick Williams. Before that, Saints got a video package back in New Orleans, standing on an empty lot where his home used to be before Hurricane Katrina hit it. He said he knew he'd make it to the big time because he had no other choice, but he's about way more than Flash because he's a common man from Nolans. Saints said he wouldn't let circumstances, define him. And the championship match wasn't just about winning the NXT title, but turning the non-believers into believers, proving all of his sacrifice has paid off. This was great. The best and realest presentation of Saints maybe in his entire professional career. It also made me extremely nostalgic for New Orleans, even though I was just there in February. I say this as someone whose family is from New York and who is presently in New York. I'm not sure there's a major city I enjoy visiting more than New Orleans. But this with Saints was fantastic. So the title versus title match, Femi against Williams. This was obviously the main event of NXT with multiple TNA wrestlers showing up in the crowd before the bell. Among them, Moose, Steve Macklin, and Mike Santana. More and more showed up, men and women, as this whole thing went on. The most notable out of all of them being Matt Cardona showed up, which, of course, he's been pretty much begging to get another chance at WWE sooner than later. Mike Santana also jumped the barricade, and joined commentary here. Williams caught Femi with a bookend. Oba caught Trick with an almighty spinebuster. Both did running and flying uppercuts into him. Saw Cedric Alexander show up, which popped me. Trick kick led to a false finish, so Oba did his toss slam. Williams countered Fall from Grace with a tough cover. Then he landed Trick shot clean for a false finish. Oba countered back with Fall from Grace for a 2.8 count. There were dueling NXT and TNA chants. The guys clotheslined one another over the top rope. Trick ran Oba into the steel steps before smacking Santana across the face. That led to an all-out intergender brawl, hears and faces just going apeshit. The match got thrown out as a no contest. While chaos was unfolding, Ricky kind of calmly strode over to the NXT title on its platform, got one hand on it. Looking at himself in the reflection, Oba stole it away from him, began holding it up as the show ended. And the shot of these guys, holding the title while chaos was unfolding all around them, was just fantastic. It was a great way to end the program. Look, we knew from last week's booking, this was all for show. There was no way the match would end clean. I was actually surprised both guys got as much as they did. A couple real false finishes. It's interesting, too, because the expectation has long been Oba dropping the title to Javon Evans. But after this performance, Trick is going to have a legitimate one-on-one match with him, which kind of gives away the expectation for the No Mercy finish. So does Oba go through Saints and Williams before losing to Evans? Or is he on the precipice of getting called up and therefore needs to drop the title with the Trick feud remaining unsolved? It's going to be interesting to kind of see how this is all laid out in the coming weeks and months, how Javon fits into all of this. But going into No Mercy, despite the idea of strapping up Saints is fantastic. He deserves it. He's capable. It would be fresh because Oba's been champion for a long ass time. I do ultimately believe Femi retains the title here. And maybe this is Ricky getting called up to the main roster, because if he loses this, I really don't know what else there is for him to do. So that wraps up our NXT No Mercy Ultimate Preview. In terms of a pre-show expectation grade, look, initially the way the show was booked, when it was just Lola Vice against JC Jane, and they said the Speed Championship was going to be on there, I was like, man. And, Ethan Page and Tavian Heights, I was like, man, I know I'm upset that NXT is doing a premium live event in my neck of the woods and I'm not going, but if there was one to skip, it's going to be this. And then they put Javon Evans on the card. And then they gave us Jordan and Blake in a weaponized steel cage match. And then Lola and JC actually got good. And then they booked Oba Femi and Ricky Saints, which is a hell of a main event. And this is the type of show that Silver King is all in about. So I got to tell you, I'm going for an expectation grade for NXT for a show that I did not think was going to get built well. I'm going to start pretty damn high here. I'm going to start a 90 out of 100, an A-. I think this is going to be a better show than we've so far had in the month of September. Top to bottom. That, of course, means I'm referring to WWE WrestlePalooza and AEW All Out, which we will be talking about later in the show, actually next on the show. But I have really high expectations for NXT No Mercy. I believe there's going to be significant FOMO from me on Saturday night, and hopefully we will bring all of that to you Saturday night, possibly early Sunday morning, with an NXT No Mercy instant analysis. Speaking of instant analysis, let's do that not so instantly for AEW All Out 2025. I know this is multiple days later, but look, I watched every match except for the final three the night of the show. I wasn't able to watch the final three until immediately before I saw Dynamite. So I'm doing the absolute best I can to bring you this unfettered analysis. It's days later, but it's a full breakdown. And, you guys, deserve it. And look, I deserve to say it because, again, I took the time and effort to actually do it. So I hope everyone still cares. All these days later, we're going to cover AEW All Out, and then we will, of course, talk about AEW Dynamite from Wednesday. But as I said, we are starting with AEW All Out analysis. All Out purposefully went 5 hours on the main card to cut into the first hour of WWE WrestlePalooza. I have no issue with that from a competition standpoint. But as a fan and a viewer, doing that for a non-stadium show with a mostly thrown together card was simply ridiculous. It's too much. It's too long. Even if every match was 5 stars, which this show certainly was not, it would have been too ridiculously indulgent even in that case. The only other periphery issue that bothered me during this broadcast, it came from production, deciding to constantly put live social media posts on screen during matches. It sucked when WWE did it. It sucks even more now in 2025. What is this accomplishment? It's a pay-per-view. Are you trying to tell the audience already watching that their money is well spent because other people like it? It's one thing when AEW screams, "Ain't we great" on television? The hope is that translate into people believing what they're watching is actually great. But on pay-per-view, it's absolutely terrible. They also seem to always put these up in like pivotal moments of the match, which made it even more annoying. The visuals of the show were fine. I liked the multiple screens on the set, how that looked. For All Out, being in Canada, Toronto, the blue and white, it really looks solid. Let's start with the main event. AEW Championship, Hangman Page against Kyle Fletcher. The stipulation, Fletcher would lose the TNT title if anyone from Don Callis' family got involved. AEW did the ring announce like WWE, dropping the lights and stuff, and it oddly continued into the early portion of the match before changing to regular lighting. I actually love the idea of the main event being lit differently, so it was too bad it didn't continue. Fletcher did an apron powerbomb early, plus a hanging spike DDT, Michinoku driver, and elbow drop. There was a real strong counter sequence, ending with a huge Liger bomb. Hangman came back with a tombstone ringside and a similar hanging spike DDT off the apron. Fletcher answered with a suplex off the barricade into the ring announcer table. Brainbuster inside was a false finish. Hangman then countered on the apron for a deadeye off the apron through a table that exploded in such a way it looked like Fletcher's head went directly into the floor. I mean, holy shit. So unnecessarily dangerous. Hangman countered again inside for a perfect deadeye this time. A couple more counters, near falls, a strong sequence put together. There were callbacks to Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay, Swerve Strickland. Fletcher countered Buckshot Lariat into half of a small package, then countered it again into a brainbuster for a false finish. Minutes later, Page hit Avalanche Deadeye without a cover, plus Buckshot Lariat to retain the title in 38 minutes. Absolutely delivered as a main event. These guys went to war. It was never a question that Hangman and Fletcher would put on a banger. We knew that the second the match was booked. The problem was throwing it together for this main event in lieu of something stronger for the new champion to sink his teeth into. This tied with the unified title bout for match of the night, 4.5 stars A. Tough to ask for more bell to bell outside of a little bit more safety on a couple of the moves. Plus there was a massive Deadeye brainbuster spam. The former is a signature, sometimes finisher of Page. The latter is an always finisher for Fletcher. It was a bit overindulgent, especially because these are a couple of guys with deep arsenals. I'd like to see them use more of their game in the match, not just Deadeye, Buckshot, Brainbuster, Deadeye, Buckshot, Brainbuster. Like, come on, do more, right? Like, that's the whole point of AEW. It's where the best wrestle. So show me that you can do a match that's not just your finishers, one after another. Like I said, it was still tied for match of the night. Darby Allin against Jon Moxley in a coffin match. This was fourth to last on the card, which was a bit surprising, as it was one of 2 remaining matches with a storyline, and the only one that I felt was legitimately built. Darby attacked during Mox's entrance with a coffin drop off the bomb for a red-hot start. Frankly, for me, it was the spot of the match. It never got better than that. They bit each other a bunch. Mox's ear bled from it immediately. Family-friendly stuff for sure. Mox stood up in the coffin only for Darby to hit a tope suicida, running both of them into it. Great spot. I kind of suggested they do something like that with Darby crawling out at the end to win. All of the Death Riders came out, pushing the coffin into the ring, as Bryan Danielson correctly pointed out how it's disgusting and nonsensical, as I've said before, that no baby faces were out there helping the kid. Despite the Riders all being out there without issue, Mox told them, hey, just go ahead and leave. Then he slams Darby's fingers into the coffin. Then he said, I love you, kissed him, while straddling him atop the coffin. Hey now. Darby took a fork out of a turnbuckle, stabbed Mox in the head a bunch, then hit another coffin drop ringside, family-friendly. Another coffin drop on the closed coffin broke the lid, so when he slammed Mox's fingers in it, Mox sold it, but the lid didn't close on them. It looked silly. Scorpion death drop and a fork mutilation of Mox's ear later, Darby bit it again. Family friendly. Mox hit Death Rider atop the coffin, wasted about 90 seconds pacing around, allowing Darby to stop the closure and choke him with a pipe. Brian then pointed out that Darby, hey, come look at this thing I got over here. It was a clear plastic bag. So Allen asphyxiated Mox, hit a code red, and stomped his head in from Brian. Fans chanted, "This is murder." And then all of a sudden, Pac returns with a full beard, short hair, a shirt, and pants. He looked like a completely different person, almost a mini Wade Barrett. It was weird. He got to throwing Darby outside the ring, over the ropes, into a second coffin with a razor's edge. I said the coffin drop off the vom was the spot of the match. This was a close second. That razor's edge was sick. Then he wrapped him in a body bag, dumped him in the coffin. Mox kicked the lid closed, considering, he had no air in his lungs to move. And the match was over. Now look, if the Death Riders have not already jumped the shark for you, this had to be the moment. I don't have the exact time, but these guys wrestled, 20, 25 minutes. It was knockdown, drag out, blood, mutilation, all that shit. And then you have 5 heels all helping Mox. Not a single baby face showing up for Darby. Mox stupidly calling 4 of them away, rather than the baby faces creating a reason that they're no longer available ringside. AEW actually taking the big step toward Danielson getting his retribution via Darby, all to not deliver on it. Oh yeah, Shafir also loosened the bottom rope at one point with a wrench for no reason. Extremely weird. This was not at all my style of match, and frankly, I hate the idea of 2 coffins. The only reason to do that was to weaponize them in lieu of bothering to tell a match story around the usage of a single coffin for the finish. Instead, the coffin stipulation was solely so Darby could lose without being pinned, which is ridiculous when 5 people are interfering. He could have just been pinned in a hardcore match, and that's that. Despite my distaste for that, these guys worked hard, and Darby looked great, specifically with his coffin drops. The asphyxiation stuff doesn't play for me. It was a smart storytelling device, having that be the secret Danielson whisper to Allen as a means of getting revenge and helping him without physically interfering. Pac's return circumstantially was ridiculous, but the razor's edge over the ropes was insane. So it was a great match in parts, way overindulgent and ridiculous, with a stupid-ass match story and finish. The booking was terrible. I'm at a frustrating 4 stars A- for it. Very frustrating because I believed this would be great, and I told you that on the Ultimate Preview. Later backstage, Mox was doing like a eulogy or something for Darby in the coffin. This is like an hour later, by the way. He told the Death Riders drive away. For some reason, he has a faction, but he doesn't want them anywhere near him. Allen immediately popped open the lid, having been unable to unzip the bag from inside somehow, and he also had a lead pipe in there with him. Then he lit the bag on fire. He put Mox in the bag first. Then he lit the bag on fire, which was out before a fire extinguisher could even be used. Somehow, a fire extinguisher was on standby despite no one being able to have any idea he was about to get out of the coffin, let alone light someone on fire. So it wasn't premeditated. It's completely illogical. Darby got dragged away at the end. I figured it would lead to an Inferno match or something like that. We'll circle back to what it actually led to. Mark Briscoe against MJF, tables and tacks. This was third on the card. MJF wore a white collar wins shirt, which was just way too on the nose. Briscoe dumped out the tacks all over the canvas after the bell, predictably taking the first bump, which took like 10 minutes to happen. Briscoe's head got busted open quick, but because MJF wore white pants, it looked like he had his period, like on a heavy flow day, and it also looked like he shit blood too. Briscoe flipped out, reversed a back body drop for MJF's first bump. Pop-up almighty spinebuster Froggy Bow followed, with it becoming clear tacks were embedded on the back of his head. Step off cannonball into a table, run off elbow drop into a table, just like Cactus Jack. That followed. MJF did a tombstone pile driver onto a chair on the tacks with an Undertaker cover for a false finish. Then they countered a half dozen moves on the ropes, biting foreheads. Briscoe hit Froggy Bow on a standing MJF through a tack table, plus another Froggy Bow and Jay Driller onto the tacks for the unquestioned victory. Biggest win of Briscoe's AEW career, possibly the biggest singles run of his entire career, just given where MJF stands in the hierarchy. I believe MJF may have another bit part in a film explaining the decision, but the build-up to get to this point in their feud, which was actually developed and not thrown together, it completely paid off. That's why I was looking forward to this more than most things on the card. Grade-wise, it's tough. It really wasn't a particularly notable match. The tacks really carried it. It was super slow even getting to them, then pretty slow throughout. 4 stars A- for the in-ring storytelling, plus the bumps and the overall work. Kind of curious, AEW had Briscoe unnecessarily lose a TNT title match, only to then come back and win this, which would actually make him like a top contender, at least for the Unified title, if not the AEW title. Briscoe cut a promo after this match, which was later in the show. He teased Orange Cassidy's return. Women's Championship, Toni Storm defended against Jamie Hayter, Chris Statlander, and Thekla. The entire video preview for this match was Storm doing her shtick. No build for any of the challengers. Thekla went from doing a pull-out suplex over, out of the Trio O, like a German out of the Trio O, to immediately crouching over in her spider stance, only for Storm to kick her. Well, do I even need to really tell you where she kicked her? You know where she kicked her. Part of the match story was Storm and Hayter being prevented from fighting because that's what the fans most wanted to see. Statlander took Thekla off the ropes, dragging her out ringside for Saturday Night Fever. Storm then caught her with Storm Zero for a broken fall. Storm Hayter drew the best reactions of the match, but even those were relatively muted. Haterade was a broken fall. Thekla did a nice spear of Hayter off the apron ringside, which was easily the spot of the match. Stat then countered Storm Zero to the canvas, rotating into a seatbelt for the 1-2-3 to become the new women's champion. The surprise title change got the pop of the match by a mile. The crowd was simply stunned that AEW switched it up in this manner. Color me equally surprised. What I liked most here is that Stat pinned Storm and didn't win the title in cheap fashion. Storm sold the shock extremely well. This is a long time coming for Stat, who has been the hoss of this division since AEW's inception. The argument I'll make against this move is that it came without significant build to the culmination of the moment. Stat has been regularly featured on TV in this questionable story with Death Riders, but that hasn't been propping her up into a position where fans were specifically clamoring for her to win the title. So, like I said, it was a great moment for her individually, but there wasn't that momentum behind the win that you really want. And having her take her first strap after 5 or 6 years in a 4-way versus doing a long match with Storm or whoever would have been champion, you do need to question that decision-making. But all in all, it was nice to have a surprise title change. Stat absolutely deserved it. The match was okay. 3.25 stars and a B. I did expect better bell to bell, but the moment kind of reigned supreme. I was really happy for her. Adam Copeland and Christian Cage fought FTR. There was an intro for this that I didn't fully understand because I didn't recognize the guy involved. Cope and Christian obviously got an incredible reaction from the Toronto fans, including a loud serenade for the former's theme. 10 minutes in, Copeland paid homage to John Cena with 5 moves of doom, including the 5-knuckle shuffle and an attitude adjustment. Fans even chanted Cena, which was a really cool moment. Bryan Danielson strangely mentioned the homage, then called it a Death Valley driver. I assume because Michael Cole called the spear for Roman Reigns rather than Edge, but that's not even the move type. So it was really odd from Danielson. Stokely broke up a double sharpshooter, leading to power and glory from the heels. The faces hit one another's finishers, only for Stoke to pull the referee out of the ring. That led to the debut of Beth Phoenix, named Beth Copeland, who speared Stoke on the ramp and then carried him to the back. She looked fantastic. Cash Wheeler pulled Christian off the ropes, down the stairs, onto the announce table with a powerbomb. Cope then took a ring bell shot and a spike pile driver. Let's just go back. A ring bell shot to the head and a spike pile driver for a 2.99 false finish. It was perfect. Copeland then hit 2 Impaler DDTs, only to eat a shatter machine for another false finish. Then he speared Cash for the 1-2-3. Seriously, it just happened like that. And that's how the match ended. This was curious. Christian basically did not factor into any part of the finish outside of holding Dax Harwood's legs so he couldn't break up the fall. My pure assumption is this was done because Copeland is closer to the end of his run and this may be his last major show in Toronto, except the matriarchy music played afterward with them and FTR teaming up to handcuff Copeland and take out Cage. So Beth kissed Adam, attacked FTR, and she took a spike pile driver to end it. The match itself was great. It was on its way to, a full A type of level due to the work, nostalgia, homage, and crowd. I'm down to 3.75 stars B+ due to the lackluster finish, especially considering how much punishment Copeland took to keep kicking out time and time again. I think I forgot to mention there was also a 3D that was executed by the faces. I guess the booking here was to create a reason for Beth to wrestle in AEW besides making this appearance, but is Shayna Wayne going to suit up? Or is she going to fight the men alongside her husband and his best friend? I just found that to be strange and unnecessary. It was the perfect opening match. When the pinfall concluded, I wondered if I'd like anything on the show as much of this. I ultimately did, but I thought this was really strong on its own. TBS Championship, Mercedes Moné against Riho. Riho dominated early, hitting a 619, 2 ringside coup de grace off the apron and announce table, crucifix bomb. Mercedes came back with a meteor off the desk and a surfboard. Riho answered with statement maker, but Moné hit 4 amigos before knees up for a frog splash. Rio hit a hanging double stomp before taking a sunset flip powerbomb into the corner and hitting Meteora. Rio got 3 2 counts on suplexes before Mercedes grabbed the referee, gouged Rio's eyes, and hit Monet Maker to retain her title. This was a damn good match that met expectations, 3.75 stars B+. The cheap finish was completely unnecessary, considering Rio has done nothing to deserve the opportunity in the first place, as we said previously. Too bad it didn't mean any more. Unified title, Kazuchika Okada, Konosuke Takeshita, and Mascara Dorada. You'll remember this was my match of the day prediction coming into the show. Just for context, obviously there were a ton of spots here. The vast majority of the match was Dorada working as the centerpiece. That way, Okada and Takeshita were kept apart. Dorada had a couple cool counters into arm drags, only to eat a nasty brainbuster on the ramp from Takeshita. Much later, he hit 2 tope tornillos. The dude is sick. Takeshita finally hit a move on Okada, Blue Thunderbomb. Dorada landed a rollover Canadian Destroyer on Takeshita, plus a 450 for a broken fall, then a double Hurricanrana out of the corner. There was a similar double moonsault spot later. Okada and Takeshita teamed up to boot him before standing off of the cradle tombstone and a wheelbarrow German suplex no-sold for a tombstone pile driver. Okada got knees up on a shooting star press, with Takeshita hitting last ride for a pump knee chaser. Takeshita hit a superplex and raging fire for a broken fall, with Okada ultimately drop-kicking him out of the ring and hitting Rainmaker on Dorada to retain. Incredible match, bell to bell. The setup to get here was absurd, but there was storyline between Okada and Takeshita, even if it had only been told to this point through stare downs, another of which occurred after the bell. The Blue Thunderbomb counter was spectacular in its own right. The finish was predictable, not in a bad way, in an appropriate way, and Okada Takeshita remains on the table at a later date, which is huge. Really well done, completely lived up to my expectation. 4.5 stars and an A. Tag Team Championship, Rodito, Young Bucks, Jet Speed, Hechicero, and Josh Alexander in a ladder match. Clunky 4-person German suplex based by Brody King early. Alexander then missed a backdrop onto a ladder. King later took a swanton bomb from Matt Jackson while on a ladder propped between the ring post and a table. Really nice spot. There were a lot more flips and springboards and stuff. Kevin Knight had a couple nice spots. Brodito did a facsimile of the spot Andrade and Rey Fenix did at SummerSlam. There was a terrible spot where Mike Bailey tried his moonsault double knees backwards. He completely missed Hechicero and got stuck in the ladder, kind of like AJ Francis when he did that dumb move in TNA. Bandito did a sunset flip powerbomb despite clearly being in position to grab the titles. Commentary correctly screamed about that, so credit to them. Then they did a similar 4-corner spot as WWE did at SummerSlam, ending with his finisher into a propped ladder. It was the best of the 4 spots. Bandito holding a ladder, did a moonsault, taking out 2 dudes ringside as King eliminated both Bucks with a tope suicida. That allowed Bandito to run back in, climb the ladder, and retain the titles. The proper result, solid finish to a spot fest. This was clearly closer to the TLC at SummerSlam than the TLC from SmackDown, and from a spot-making standpoint, it was extremely entertaining. 2 of the 4 teams had no business being in the match. There was no reason whatsoever for the specific ladder match stipulation. What was kind of weird is how the crowd saw so many spots that it stopped responding to some of them. But Brodito completely got them in the end. It moved a little bit slower than I would have expected, 4 stars A-. Now, when the match ended, Jack Perry randomly showed up behind the Bucks in the ring. He flicked them off, tackled each of them before Rocky Romero, for some reason, pulled him off. The Bucks then hit him with Super Kick Party. They set up for BTE Trigger, only for Perry to smile. The lights went out. A video played of Perry dragging a coffin out of the ground and along a road. The idea was that he rebuilt Luchasaurus like Frankenstein. He appeared, Luchasaurus did, behind the Bucks with a Killswitch belt. He took it off, fans sang their old Jurassic Express theme, and they hugged before the music played and the fans sang even louder. So just to clarify, Luchasaurus didn't change his name when he turned on Christian. Now he's out of the matriarchy without a storyline reason. Jungle Boy is back, but he looks like Perry. He's still doing Raven cosplay. And they're reforming the Popular, granted, but the tag team that was kind of done, in terms of being relevant in 2025. And they've done this after multiple attempts to get Perry over and nothing else worked. Everything failed. Then you couple this with the Acclaimed reformation. And it just shows the way this tag team division has fallen, that both of these teams needed to come back together to try and save it. Also, what's Perry's reason for turning on the Bucks when they did everything they could for him, to the best to my recollection at least? My thought after this was he needs a promo to explain that. But it was a nice moment for the fans. They popped. They entered the face tunnel. They popped even more for that. That was positive. We had Eddie Kingston against Big Bill. This was second on the card. Kingston got a great response as expected. Didn't realize it at first, but this was 2 big, meaty men slapping meat. Bill dominated early, then he kicked out at 1 after a back fist to the head. A couple minutes later, he had a second back fist that commentary first said missed. Then they called it a glancing blow, yet he got the pinfall victory from it. Brian Keith attacked after, so Hook saved and put him in red rum. This was the second straight bout to open the show with a post-match segment, and as you could tell, there were multiple of those throughout the program. The match on its own, it seemed like it was on its way to being something. And then they did the finish. Post-match was completely unnecessary. It soiled Eddie getting his moment in the sun. Why did you need to put Hook here? Why did you need to involve Brian Keith? 2 stars C-. That's being generous. I actually expected more from this, given they spoiled their return for it. Made the decision even worse in retrospect. I think I gave this the same grade as John Cena, Brock Lesnar. Each was bad, just for completely different reasons. And lastly, we had Hurt Syndicate against Ricochet and Gates of Agony. With the exception of Ricochet, big, meaty men slapping meat. That's what I like to see. Ricochet bumped his ass off here. Shelton Benjamin had a cool double German suplex and then a step-off pump knee ringside. Ricochet did a tope over the ring post before MVP's other knee got taken out as he tried his finisher, allowing Ricochet to hit Spirit Gun and get the win. Benjamin and Lashley had been taken out ringside before that. The finish is what we expected. It came in real sudden and relatively boring fashion. This was a TV main event at best, which was disappointing considering it was one of the matches actually built for the card through storyline. This was a B, 3.5 stars maybe. Ricochet's comedy and bumping was the best part of this match by a mile. Apparently, his trio is now called The Demand. Unfortunately, that is a terrible name. We nailed this prediction. Unsurprising. The one Syndicate guy who never wrestles is the one who got pinned. Of course, that was what was going to happen. And in terms of the tailgate brawl, it looked like a fourth match was added without being announced. At least I didn't see it. From what I watched on mute, Daniel Garcia beating Katsuyori Shibata via Death Rider shenanigans was the best match of the 4 by a significant margin. The women's match was super messy and awkward as expected, despite some of them getting a nice pop when they made their entrances. So that wraps up the AEW All Out analysis. Quickly for grades, pre-show, I came in expecting 86 out of 100. All of you, our listeners, 31% A range, 41% B plus to B, 16% B minus to C plus, 12% C or lower. That averaged out to an 87.1 out of 100 to B plus. Your final grades were 22% A plus to A, 29% A minus to B plus, 29% B to B minus, 20% C plus or lower. That averaged out to an 87.2 out of 100. So you were pretty much right aligned with what your grade was previously. And I think you guys completely nailed it. This was a B plus show, helmed by 2 real high quality men's title matches and a spot fest of a tag team ladder match. I enjoyed very much the hardcore matches that we got, but both of them fell below expectation to a significant degree. I was at a B coming in. I had multiple matches fall below expectation, and yet I'm still going higher than I was in the pre-show. Again, don't forget, most of the show did not have real storyline stakes. It was matches thrown together, very little build, number 1 contenders that didn't deserve it. So I'm also at an 87 out of 100, a B plus. I thought it was better than WrestlePalooza, no doubt about it. Obviously, I thought it was better than my expectation was going in, but did I think this was a special show or one of AEW's greatest pay-per-views? No. Would I have spent $50 for it? No, I wouldn't have. I mean, it didn't live up to some of those shows that we've seen, and I don't find just a bunch of matches that go on for 5 hours, a couple of which are great, being worth that kind of money when you're not giving me storylines to get me truly excited for the biggest matches on the card. There were storylines for some, just not some of the biggest ones, and that for me was problematic. Okay, let's talk AEW Dynamite. 2 of the 5 matches on the show were relevant. 3 of them were title matches. I was just kind of confused at why and how all of this stuff was booked the way it was. I cut down the match breakdowns for this show just due to my limited time. Wanted to make sure I watched as much as I possibly could, as efficiently as possible, and that we get through this as quickly as possible. AEW Championship. Yeah, you heard that right. Hangman Page beat Lee Moriarty in an open challenge. Page cut a backstage promo at the onset of the show, saying he didn't want Kyle Fletcher to disappoint him after getting his moment in the sun. Then, despite this being announced as an open challenge, he said he wanted to fight the best wrestler from the city they were in. Doesn't change the fact that this was completely thrown together, with Moriarty not even being close to a deserving challenger. Hangman escaped a submission late, won with Deadeye in 10 minutes. At least he didn't need his finisher, and it was rather short. I figured a new challenger would emerge after this. Nope. Claudio Castagnoli beat Powerhouse Hobbs in 11 minutes. I gave this relevancy credit since the groups have been feuding forever, even if there wasn't a specific build for this one-on-one. People talk about WWE storylines and feuds going on too long. Holy shit. Pac distracted late, allowing Claudio to hit a European uppercut and a small package to get the win. Samoa Joe ran down to chase Pac away. Then Daniel Garcia, Wheeler Yuta, they came back for a 5-on-2 attack. Hangman saved to clear the ring by himself. The match was fine, all in all. Not that special. Women's Championship, Chris Statlander beat Mina Shirakawa in the final match of the show that was billed as a main event, except it wasn't the final thing we saw. Stat was backstage with Harley Cameron, who was still a cat for some reason, celebrating her title win. She refused to answer a question about her association with Death Riders. Mina later said she was worried about Toni Storm, wanted to fight on her behalf. Shirakawa just getting a title match after losing so many other women's title matches in AEW recently was the height of absurdity. Why were there 3 title bouts on the show immediately coming out of a pay-per-view with, I believe, none of them announced until hours before the show, and none of them earned number 1 contenderships? Stat escaped to figure 4 with the ropes, won with the seatbelt again. This was B-level match. Yuta came out to congratulate Stat, who obviously used his move to win. Since they spoke before the match and have spoken before other matches where she's used it, clearly a connection was being made there. Harley ran in to celebrate. Death Riders surrounded the ring before Jon Moxley and Marina Shafir came out. So Mox stares at her. Yuta hugs her. She hugs him back. He raises her arm. Then she clotheslines him. Shafir attacked. She dodged her, put double birds in Mox's face, and then just ran away with Harley into the crowd. And then randomly, Darby Allin comes out with a flamethrower because I guess the women can't actually main event a Dynamite. It stayed lit as the Riders just ran away from him. Why he did this, I have no idea. He wasn't chasing Mox. He wasn't chasing the Death Riders away from other babyfaces or something like that. Allin said he would never quit, and he challenged Mox to an I Quit match at WrestleDream. It went unanswered. Okay, first, from the women's side, what the hell was the point of this long storyline with the Death Riders? So Stat could flick off Mox once, so Marina could not fight her for the title? Remember, Shafir never fought Willow Nightingale one-on-one. They feuded for like a year. I was just completely confused by the purpose of this. The flamethrower was obviously ridiculous in a wrestling context. I was kind of stupefied by it. If you're doing the flamethrower and you're doing lighting him on fire at All Out, why aren't you doing an Inferno match? Tony Khan, not an on-screen character, was on screen with a special announcement unveiling the women's tag team titles. There were no further details about when the first champions would be crowned or how. I'm sure it's going to be a tournament. But Renee did unveil the titles, which looked very similar to the men's titles. They look nice, all things considered. We'll see if this gets booked well initially, and then whether it continues getting booked well 6 months, even 3 months. After that, we see how the men's tag team and trios divisions have been booked. MJF, from After All Out, because he's never on TV after pay-per-views, expressed his anger, saying he was once the biggest name in all of wrestling until Adam Cole broke his own ankle and then broke MJF's heart, leading him to lose everything. His contention was that something's missing. He's not himself. He's been playing MJF since he lost the title, making mistake after mistake. MJF said he cannot come back until he sees the old MJF, the guy who should be at the front of the company, not playing from behind. He promised to return as the most dangerous he's ever been. This was an excellent promo, one of his best over the last few years, legitimately great. He did conveniently forget that he has a number 1 contendership contract, so it's not like he's been a complete loser of late, but okay, dude, fair enough. It was actually my favorite part of the entire show. Tag Team Championship, Brodito fought Gates of Agony. Ricochet in a tape promo explained they were basically supposed to be booked in the Trios title picture, but since Katsuyori Shibata got injured, they got a tag team title match. These guys literally got a Trios title match 1 month ago and lost. Now, they beat the former tag team champions in Hurt Syndicate, although they pinned MVP, who was not part of those champions. Okay, I was okay with the candidacy. I gave it relevancy credit, but booking it on no notice was absurd. Brody King stopped the heels on the ropes for a double electric chair. Bandito missed a frog splash. Ricochet got caught trying to cheat with a chair. He got ejected. Then Brody hit a tope suicida on as Bandito did 21 plex to retain. B-level match, 15 minutes, solid retention. Did it take the demand out of the Trios title picture now that they lost this? Because they'd be more interesting with the Trio straps than the Ops at this juncture, and the Ops really need to stop feuding with the Death Riders. There was a post-all-out backstage segment of Adam Copeland distraught over Beth getting taken out. He told Christian Cage he can't keep doing this shit because it's affecting his family, saying he didn't know whether he should come back after this. Christian said he didn't have family anymore, so Cope could go handle his. Cope basically said, hey, dude, you're my family. This was to write Copeland off for more like Percy Jackson stuff, I believe. Sensible enough. Good segment in a silo. FTR came out blaming Copeland for his wife getting hurt, refusing to apologize for their actions. Their contention being Beth started it by attacking them. Then they insulted her, suggesting she wasn't even a woman for them to put their hands on. Stokely complained and ranted about getting speared while fans chanted at him. Willow Nightingale thankfully interrupted and confronted, putting Beth over up and down, saying she's the reason people like Willow don't take shit from guys like them. Stoke talked back at her, so she smacked him, and then Jet Speed came to her rescue. The FTR part of this was boring as sin. Willow was excellent as usual. She remains immensely underutilized. Hopefully that is changing soon. There was a Jurassic Express video package talking about choosing to be better and stronger while rebuilding themselves. It didn't add much, but it did promote them for TV next week. And lastly, Conglomeration Hologram, Mark Briscoe, and a returning Orange Cassidy beat Don Callis family, Hechicero, Kazuchika Okada, and Konosuke Takeshita. Guess who took the fall there? Roderick Strong was backstage in this segment despite not liking Conglomeration. Briscoe did the comedy promo thing, making a bunch of orange puns, basically telling us that Cassidy would be the mystery partner. Another multi-man match just because Orange returned running through a Callis painting while he was cutting an annoying promo. Despite him being the one back in action, it was Hologram who beat Hechicero with a portal bomb. I don't know why you wouldn't have Orange win the match. Fletcher interrupted the post-match, saying he proved that he's a main eventer and will be ready for the title one day soon. He said he wanted to be the greatest TNT champion of all time and wanted to continue his run by ending Hologram's 34-match undefeated streak. Really nice booking. Title versus streak. I like that. This will probably be the debut of Clone, costing him the streak and allowing Fletcher to retain the title. Typically AEW, the graphic was ready literal seconds after the challenge. All in all, it was an okay episode of Dynamite. AEW really has a problem. It's not successful following up pay-per-views with those first Dynamites. You should be setting up new feuds and new challengers for titles. They did set up some new feuds, don't get me wrong. FTR and like Jet Speed and something that's happening, I guess, with Stat and Death Riders maybe. A couple other things they did, but who's Hangman's next title challenger? Like, we should at least get an inkling of that here. Who is going to be challenging Stat for her championship? Same thing. And instead, you're just putting them in title matches against randos for no reason whatsoever. It's thrown together, and this is Tony Khan generally in football mode, where he, thinks about, he needs more time basically to figure out what's next. It shows a lack of planning, and for me as a viewer, that's always frustrating. So look, that wraps up this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. We covered a lot, and I did it as expeditiously as I could. An NXT and an AEW breakdown, an ultimate preview, and an instant analysis. We tried to deliver as much performance-enhancing audio to your earholes as we possibly could. We will be back, I believe, Saturday night, Sunday morning, with your NXT No Mercy instant analysis. So if you're a new listener, make sure you hit subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening to it. We're available on all platforms. Don't forget, here at the Getting Over Wrestling podcast,
It's all about the five.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple, take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Remember to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news analysis, highlights, all of that good stuff. On YouTube, if you subscribe, you get full-length audio episodes, full-length video interviews as well. Lastly, don't forget,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up, you'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. All right, that's it. Thank you so much for listening to this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. This is the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.